Welcome to the C-Suite series presented by Channel Check and Noble Capital Markets. Noble is an SEC registered, FINRA licensed broker-dealer and the source of the equity research available on Channel Check. Today's interview features Labrador Gold Corporation, OTCQX ticker symbol NKOSF, TSXV ticker symbol LAB. Noble Senior Research Analyst Mark Reichman interviews Labrador Gold President and Director Roger Moss. Visit channelcheck.com or click the link in the description to access equity research, news, and advanced market data on Labrador Gold, all at no cost. And now, here's Mark and Roger.
Roger, would you please share a little about your background and how you became affiliated with Labrador Gold?
Yeah, sure, Mark. It's I'm an exploration geologist by trade. I've been working in various places probably for about 35 years now, and a lot of international experience: South Africa, Namibia, Southern America, and as well as Canada. And most of that has been either in gold or copper. Copper, of course, down in on some of the big porphyry copper deposits down in South America, and gold elsewhere, including in Namibia, where I was involved in the discovery of Labrador Gold deposit with Anglo American. So a pretty good background, almost entirely exploration though. I haven't gone sort of too much higher up the rungs. Usually by the time we get to feasibility studies, I kind of say, okay, I'm done here, and move on. And getting involved with Labrador Gold was probably happened about 13 years ago, although the company then was called NKOSF Explorations, and we did a lot of exploration here in Ontario before starting work in 2017 up in Labrador. And that's when we changed the name to Labrador Gold from NKOSF Explorations, and started in up in Labrador, as I said, in 2017.
For investors that may be unfamiliar, would you provide a high-level sketch of the company's projects and or properties?
Yes, so right now we have 4 properties. We are focused in Eastern Canada. We have our Borden Lake property in Ontario. We have the Scotch property in New Brunswick, which is totally grassroots. We just staked it last year, and we still have one of the Labrador properties that we optioned back in 2017, and that's the Hopedale project. And of course, our flagship property is the Kingsway property that we optioned back in March of 2020, and that's really the one that we've been spending most of our time on over the past two and a half years.
And would you just please comment on the region where you're operating and the business climate in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Yeah, the business climate is excellent. We have a very good relationship with all the government departments that we deal with. They are really supportive. Probably one of the best jurisdictions that I've worked in terms of having support from the government. And we also get a lot of support from the Geological Survey, and the geologists working with them. They're always available to answer questions, to share some insights, and they've put together what is an outstanding online portal for mineral exploration information. Again, it's one of the best that I've come across in my 35 years of experience. In terms of the actual region where we're working, it's central Newfoundland. It's close to Gander. That's the main town, and some of your listeners may remember that from 9/11 and the planes destined for the U.S. had to go down in Gander. So we're in an area of very good infrastructure. The Trans-Canada Highway passes just south of our property, and we can access the property by forestry roads pretty much within a kilometre or so of anywhere we want to go. So obviously lots of water being out in Newfoundland, and the electricity is not so far away. So basically I only have good things to say about where we're working in Newfoundland.
Now, before we discuss major exploration targets, could you explain the significance of the Appleton Fault, the company's Kingsway project?
Yeah, well, I think to say that it's significant would be an understatement. It is the reason that I pursued this property so aggressively back in March of 2020. And just for your listeners' information, they're probably aware of it, but Newfound Gold had just a couple of months before then, in January, had had announced a fantastic discovery of it was just over 90 grams a ton over 19 meters on their Queensway project. And so, of course, that got a lot of people excited. And as I did some due diligence on that discovery, I realized that this was part of a known occurrence, which we know now as the Keats zone. And there were a few other occurrences, and these occurrences were strung out along this Appleton Fault. And I didn't know much about it at that point, but it didn't take very long to realize that this property that we now know as Kingsway covered a very large proportion of that Appleton Fault zone. And so to me, this was fundamental in our acquisition of the property. It's fundamental in our strategy, in our exploration strategy, and it's where we have had the most success on the property.
So, would you summarize the major targets of the 100,000-meter drill program?
I can summarize the targets that we've drilled to date, and that's we've drilled four, and well, actually we're drilling the fifth one now as well, and it's ongoing. We started drilling in April of last year, and we've been drilling ever since, other than a few breaks for Christmas and the spring melt. So it's probably easiest to go from south to north, and our southernmost target is called Golden Glove, where we discovered visible gold in an outcrop of quartz vein back in October of last year. And we've drilled there, and we've had some good success. I think the best intersection we had there was 20 grams a ton, with just under a meter, and with some visible gold in that drill core as well. We're still early stages at Golden Glove because we've drilled, I think, 6 holes now. We don't have a very good handle on the structure, so we're still sort of finding our way down there. But fortunately, we did hit gold in actually the first hole, and now in a subsequent hole for holes that we've got results from. Moving further north, we have Big Vein, which is where we spent most of our time, and we have a much better understanding of Big Vein. And what we see at Big Vein are two discrete zones. One is what we call the HTC zone, which is a high grade, steeply plunging gold chute, if you like, and we're following that up down dip or down plunge right now. But we're also following another zone, which we just call the Big Vein zone, and that's closer to surface, and we're following that down to the southwest. And just recently, we announced what is the highest grade intersect on the property of 285 grams a ton, I think it was, over about half a meter. So very encouraging there. And as we go further north, we have the Pristine target, where we had some early success with drilling there. We've stopped drilling at Pristine because we've moved a drill up further north again, and this one is on what we call the CSAMT target, it's completely blind. It's a geophysical and geochemical target that is in an area of very complex structure. And it is also on the eastern side of the Appleton Fault. So some people have thought that the eastern side of the fault is better than the western side, which is where our Big Vein and Pristine targets are, because Newfound Gold has been having some really good long intervals of high grade mineralization. So we're now drilling 2 targets, Golden Glove and CSAMT, on the east side of the fault. Both of them are very early on, so we'll see how those go. And then finally, the fifth target, if you like, that we've drilled and had success at is called Midway, and this is about 2 kilometers west of the fault. It's quite a different system, and it's hosted by the gold mineralization there is hosted by an intrusive igneous rock called gabbro, and so it's not in quartz veins in sediments. It's actually in a completely different rock, but it's lower grade. But we do get higher intervals. For example, we got 2.2 grams a ton over 13 meters just recently, very close to surface, within 40 meters of surface. So one of the things that, and again, it's early stages there. We've only drilled 8 holes, and we only have results for 4 of them. But that's something that you could see developing into potentially a bulk tonnage target, because it does have a lot of strike extent to those gabbros. So those are the targets that we've drilled. There are lots more. There are lots more to come, and the reason I say that is that the Appleton Fault, the section of the Appleton Fault that's covered by the Kingsway property, stretches over 12 kilometers. And we have probably only drilled, I'm guessing, a kilometer of that strike length. So we've got 11 more kilometers to go, and I think we're going to turn up a lot more targets that we can drill in the course of the next year or so.
At what point will you transition from exploration drilling to, say, resource definition or infill drilling?
Well, I think that really follows up on what I was just discussing regarding the targets. There's so much to do to really test that Appleton Fault zone, and it's kind of an interesting scenario because as we discussed, some of our drilling is on the west side. We're starting on the east side, and there's actually a lot of potential on the east side, further to the north of Big Vein. So we are generating targets along the entire length of the Appleton Fault, and we do that, as I mentioned, by geophysics and geochemistry. Unfortunately, a lot of it is undercover, so we don't have the ability to find outcrops with visible gold in them like we did at Big Vein and Golden Glove everywhere along the fault. So I guess to get back to your question, we're probably going to spend the remainder of this 100,000 drill program following up targets along the Appleton Fault without really focusing on one target to come up with a resource. And I think that's justified because even though we know a lot about Big Vein and we've got some good results there, there's no way of knowing that that's going to be better than something else that's out there along the Appleton Fault, especially if we can see more drilling on the east side of the fault, which may lead to longer intercepts. So I think the short answer is let's get through the 100,000 meters, really test this Appleton Fault, and then once that's done, we can see where we stand with respect to potentially going into a resource estimate.
Well, I was going to say, you're about halfway through the 100,000 meter drill program, and like you mentioned, you've only really touched on about 1 kilometer, correct?
Yeah, 1 kilometer strike length, yeah.
So could you also just talk a little bit about the company's share structure and balance sheet strength?
Yeah, so right now we've just recently had some warrants exercised that were in the money, and so we have about 169 million shares outstanding right now. The warrants have now decreased to about 20 million outstanding, and we also have 7 million options. And so fully diluted, we're just under 200 million, about 196, I guess, 196 million fully diluted. The balance sheet is really strong. I think it's great. We have 25.6 million dollars Canadian in the bank right now, so it's pretty strong.
So that'll carry you through the drill program.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, that's fully funded and more. I mean, you know, if we wanted to drill at our current rate for the next 2 years, we probably could do so.
Right, right. So now, what are some of the near-term milestones or catalysts that investors should be aware?
Well, I think what we're looking at, we're continually drilling. Obviously, we're testing new targets and also waiting for results from areas like the Golden Glove and the CSMT. So those are the real catalysts that we put out news is once we get a bunch of holes that we can release, and I think that's going to be ongoing. We don't have any real reason to change our strategy. It's worked well. As I mentioned, we've drilled four targets to date, and we've hit gold on every one of them. So I think that's a good batting average, and hopefully we'll make it five with when we get our first assays back from the CSMT. And so that's really what investors have to look forward to is just continued results from the drilling and hopefully continued success.
And then, what are Labrador Gold's key competitive advantages, and what differentiates it from its peers?
Well, I think the competitive advantage that we have is partly, as I mentioned, we've got a strategy, an exploration strategy that clearly works, and it's tested here in central Newfoundland with a drill bit, and I think that we can deploy that strategy elsewhere on the Kingsway project, and hopefully we'll be just as successful as we have been over the last 18 months. So I think that's one of them. I think the other one, and as we mentioned right off the bat, the Appleton Fault zone is key. It seems to me that this fault zone is really productive for gold mineralization, and obviously it's a deep-seated fault that allows those gold-bearing fluids to creep up to the near surface where they're deposited from way down in the crust where the source of these metals is. So being along that and having 12 kilometers of it, and not just 12 kilometers of the Appleton Fault. It's like there's a lot of Appleton Fault out there, and a lot of people claim to have part of the Appleton Fault. But I think both Newfound to the south and ourselves have demonstrated that this particular part of the Appleton Fault is very prolific in terms of its gold potential. And the other thing, of course, is one of the key differentiations between Labrador Gold and some of our peers is that we do have a very strong treasury, and we really don't need to go out and look for money for 2 years at least. And I think that is, looking at the headwinds that the economy may be facing going forward, I think that's a huge plus to have that treasury already taken care of.
And so, why is now a good time to invest in Labrador Gold?
Well, I think now is an excellent time because we've seen the share price come off quite a bit. Nothing has changed, and I think a lot of that softness in the share price had to do with the warrant exercising, and we have still been putting out very good results. As I mentioned, our highest grade interval to date was put out just recently, and I expect more to come from that. I also expect that there will be more discoveries made or more targets tested, and that we'll find more along the Appleton Fault. But I think the main thing when shareholders are looking at or investors are looking at where to put their money, they know that Labrador Gold is going to be good for, like I said, 2 years. We're not going to go dormant. We're going to continue working. We're going to continue drilling and following up these different targets for as long as it takes. And I think that's something that is a huge plus for Labrador Gold in this current environment.
Well, and as you mentioned, plenty of catalysts in the months ahead, and in particular, I think investors will also be paying attention to the results from Golden Glove and CSAMT on the east side of the fault. So, Roger, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome, Mark. It was great to have a chat and share the story with your listeners.
Thank you for joining us for this C-Suite interview presentation brought to you by Channel Check. View our YouTube channel for more video content, including C-Suite interviews, virtual roadshows, and conference presentation replays. New content is added regularly, so subscribe below to stay up to date. Visit channelcheck.com or click the link in the description to access equity research, news, and advanced market data on this and the 6,000 other small and micro-cap companies listed.